The match that broke football forever. Brazil 1-7 Germany begins not on the night of the game, but years before, in a country where football is not just a sport, but a religion, where every child grows up dreaming of yellow shirts, packed stadiums, and lifting the World Cup, where legends like Pelé, Ronaldo, Romario, and Ronaldinho built a myth so powerful that Brazil came to believe losing on home soil was impossible, especially in a World Cup and especially in a semi-final. And when Brazil won the right to host the 2014 World Cup, the nation believed destiny itself had chosen them to reclaim glory after decades of heartbreak. Yet beneath the celebrations there was pressure, unbearable pressure. A pressure that grew heavier with every match, every expectation, every chant of Hexa echoing through the streets. Because this was not just about winning a trophy. This was about redemption for 1950, about erasing the pain of the Maracanazo, about proving Brazil was still the heart of football. And as the tournament unfolded, Brazil stumbled rather than soared, scraping through matches, relying on moments rather than dominance. And when Neymar was injured brutally in the quarterfinal against Colombia, the nation felt a chill it couldn't explain, but still believed, because belief is what Brazil does best. Yet when Captain Thiago Silva was suspended for the semi-final against Germany, something deeper cracked, something invisible but fatal. And as July 8, 2014 arrived, the world gathered in Belo Horizonte, expecting a battle, a classic, a war between two giants. But what followed was not a match. It was a collapse so total that it would scar football history forever. And when the whistle blew, Germany looked calm, focused, surgical, while Brazil looked emotional, frantic, desperate to prove themselves worthy of their own legacy. And for the first 10 minutes, the stadium roared with hope. But then, in the 11th minute, Thomas Müller stood unmarked at a corner kick and scored with ease. And in that moment, something shifted, but no one yet realized how catastrophic it would become. Because football fans are trained to believe that Brazil always responds, that they always rise. But instead, 6 minutes later, Miroslav Klose became the all-time leading World Cup scorer, and the disbelief began to spread through the stands like a virus. And then, just moments later, Toni Kroos scored, and before anyone could even process it, he scored again, and the scoreboard read 4-0, and the stadium fell into stunned silence, grown men crying, children staring in shock, commentators struggling to find words. And then Sami Khedira made it 5 before half an hour had passed, 5 goals in 29 minutes, something that had never happened at this level. And in that moment, football as we knew it cracked open, because Brazil wasn't losing, Brazil was being dismantled, exposed, humiliated on the biggest stage in their own country. And the players looked broken, shells of themselves, defenders wandering aimlessly, midfielders frozen, attackers helpless, and the camera captured fans in tears, parents covering their children's eyes, people leaving the stadium before halftime, unable to watch the destruction of a dream they had carried their entire lives. And at halftime, the score was 5-0, but the damage was already irreversible, because this wasn't about goals anymore. It was about identity, pride, and the psychological collapse of a footballing nation. And when the second half began, Germany almost mercifully slowed down, but still scored twice more through Andre Schürrle, making it 7-0, a number so absurd it felt unreal, like a glitch in reality, like something from a video game. And only then did Brazil manage to score a consolation goal through Oscar, a goal that felt hollow, meaningless, almost cruel in its timing, as if football itself was mocking them. And when the final whistle blew, the scoreboard read Brazil 1, Germany 7. But the numbers did not tell the full story, because what had really happened was the collapse of a myth, the end of an era, the night football lost its innocence. And in the days that followed, the world struggled to comprehend what it had witnessed. Memes flooded the internet, analysts searched for explanations, fans argued, cried, and questioned everything they believed about the sport. And Brazil entered a period of deep reflection and identity crisis, sacking coaches, rebuilding systems, rethinking philosophy, because the defeat wasn't just tactical, it was cultural. It exposed complacency, emotional dependence, and a failure to evolve in a modern football world that had become faster, smarter, more ruthless. While Germany, on the other hand, represented the future, a team built on planning, youth development, discipline, and unity. And their victory was not accidental. It was the result of years of preparation, of restructuring after failure, of trusting a system rather than superstition. And 4 days later, Germany would go on to win the World Cup, but the final almost felt irrelevant because the real final had already been played in Belo Horizonte, the night Brazil fell. And even today, more than a decade later, the scoreline 7-1 still sends chills through football fans, still trends every World Cup, still haunts Brazilian players, still defines an entire generation's memory of football. Because some matches are remembered for glory, others for drama, but this one is remembered for something far deeper, for proving that no giant is untouchable, that history offers no protection, and that football, in all its beauty and cruelty, can change forever in just 90 minutes. And that is why Brazil 7-1, Germany, is not just a match. It is the match that broke football forever. And yet, as shocking as the scoreboard was, the true impact of Brazil 1, Germany 7 didn't reveal itself that night, because the real damage came in the silence that followed, in the days when the stadiums emptied, the banners were taken down, and an entire nation woke up, realizing something sacred had been broken, because Brazil had always believed football was its identity, its escape, its proof of greatness, and now that identity felt shattered, exposed to the world. And for the players who lived through it, the nightmare never truly ended. As many later admitted, they still hear the crowd, still see the goals replaying in their minds, still feel the weight of that night pressing down on their careers. And for David Luiz, a man who wore his heart on his sleeve and tried desperately to lead in the absence of Thiago Silva, the match became a permanent scar, turning him into the symbol of a collapse that was never truly his fault. While for goalkeeper Julio Cesar, it marked the painful end of a glorious era, and for coach Luis Felipe Scolari, the same man who had lifted the World Cup in 2002, it became the moment his legacy was rewritten forever, no longer as a hero, but as the man who stood on the sidelines as Brazil burned. And across the country, football academies, coaches, journalists, and fans began asking impossible questions. How did this happen? When did Brazil fall behind? And why did a nation so rich in talent look so helpless against a team that simply did everything better? And the answer was uncomfortable, because Germany didn't win through magic or individual brilliance alone. They won through preparation, structure, and evolution, through years of investment in youth systems, sports science, tactical education, and mental discipline, while Brazil had relied too long on talent and emotion, believing that flair would always be enough. And the 7-1 exposed that illusion mercilessly, forcing Brazil to confront the modern reality of football, where passion alone could not compete with organization, data, and collective intelligence. And in the years that followed, Brazil tried to rebuild, changing managers, philosophies, generations of players, but the shadow of that night never fully disappeared. Every heavy defeat, every missed opportunity, every major tournament exit was immediately compared to 7-1, as if time itself had frozen on that scoreboard, while Germany, on the other hand, walked away from that semifinal not just as winners, but as the embodiment of football's future, a team that proved dominance could be quiet, efficient, and merciless. Yet even for them, the victory carried a strange cost, because once you reach perfection, decline becomes inevitable, and after lifting the World Cup, Germany slowly unraveled, exiting tournaments early, losing their identity, proving that football gives no guarantees, not even to those who master it. And as years passed, the 7-1 transformed from a match into a reference point, a metaphor used whenever a team collapsed, a scoreline that became part of global culture, referenced in memes, debates, documentaries, and arguments about the greatest games ever played. Yet beneath the jokes remained a haunting truth, that football at its highest level can be merciless, that pride can vanish in minutes, and that history does not protect anyone. And for younger fans who didn't witness it live, the match became almost mythical, something so extreme it feels exaggerated, until they watch the highlights and realize it actually happened, that a World Cup semifinal on home soil ended 7-1. And the reason this match continues to live on is because it represents everything football is capable of: beauty, cruelty, drama, chaos, and emotional devastation, all compressed into 90 minutes. And even now, more than a decade later, whenever Brazil steps onto the world stage, there is an unspoken question hanging in the air. Will they ever truly escape the shadow of 2014, or will that night forever define them? And perhaps that is the true legacy of Brazil versus Germany. Not the goals, not the records, not the trophies, but the reminder that football is unforgiving, that glory is temporary, and that sometimes one match is powerful enough to rewrite history, break identities, and remind the world that no matter how great you believe you are, the game can still humble you in ways you never imagined. And that is why, even today, when fans speak of the darkest, most shocking, most unbelievable night in football history, they don't need to explain themselves. They simply say two numbers, 7 and 1, and everyone understands exactly what they mean.